Hello, everyone. I am here today with Kelly Sparta, and we're going to be discussing those signs that we receive from spirit. Like, how do you know when your guides are talking to you? In what ways does that show up for you? Because it shows up differently for everyone else, for everyone. Everybody's got their unique way of connecting. And so often I do find it really funny and you probably agree with me, Kelly, like in this holistic spiritual realm, sometimes it's like you'll just have the most random thing and I'll think to myself, I'll go to my massage therapist and I'll have a shoulder pain and it's like, are you sure it's not your guide talking to you, giving you a message? And so I think that we have this we're so tapped in to the messages that, to the possibility that there are beings out there that are trying to communicate with us, that very often when we're in this world, it's like, I have to pee. Wait, do I really have to pee? Or is that my just like the guy talking to me? But
I haven't have that one show up, but okay.
I mean, again, I've had some weird shit though. Like I had, the one that I remember the most was years ago. I still have tinnitus, but like I had this really weird tinnitus that had this pressure in the back of my head. And I was convinced it was during COVID. I'm like, I have a brain tumor. I'm like, I definitely have a brain tumor. That's what's creating this pressure. And then one day my friend Boki was like, pull cards whenever you get that. It's your guides trying to come through and they're so blocked. And I was like, I honestly was kind of like, this is bullshit. Like, again, not everything is a sign, but I pulled cards, the feeling went away and it never came back.
See? Yeah. And that does happen. Yeah. I've actually, so sometimes it's not just them trying to get your attention, but sometimes it's a physical response to a download, because that's happening right now for a lot of my students and for me and my husband. And so we're waking up every morning like crunched up like this with head neck stuff going on and tight body. And so I'm having negotiations with my guides right now. I'm like, you get 2 hours a night to work on me while I'm sleeping, and you need to not leave my body a wreck when you're done, right? This is not okay. We need to work something out here. And so, because that's been a huge issue. And in fact, one of my clients called me up. One of my coaches called me up and said that he had people saying that they were being attacked because they were feeling all of this stuff at the base of their skull, blah blah blah. Which is often, yes, it's often a possession point. So people immediately assume it's an attack, and I'm like, no, that's the part that's locked up every morning when I wake up. It's because there's a massive singularity coming, and shit's gonna change big time, and they're downloading all of us. They're downloading stuff to all of us because the timeline's going to split, and they're trying to get the people who are going to shift to one timeline set up to make that transition. And so there's all this stuff going on that's like locking everything up right now. And that's your guides working with you too. They're like, oh, we gotta upgrade, right? It's like, we gotta get you ready, right? And so, sometimes it's a download issue, right? And so, when you're talking to your guides, there's like so many different ways to look at it. I remember when I first started really connecting with my guides, which was like 25 years ago. Inevitably, I would be driving in the car and listening to the radio, and the song on the radio would give me the answer to the question I had, right?
Yes.
Huge. Or I'd wake up with the song in my head in the morning and I would find myself singing it in the shower and answering my own questions, right? So, they talked to me through music a lot in the beginning. I don't listen to music as much now, so they don't have that venue, but they talk to me direct now, so it's okay. But I know people who are like, oh, I got the chills. Well, the chills are always a yes from the universe, right? I've never seen that be something different for anybody in the whole time I've been doing this. So pretty universally, it's a yes if you get the chills. And there's people get different physical things. So like you got the pressure, right? Sometimes people will get an itching nose, or there's something going on in their body, or they have this weird sort of energy feel to them. some people get pressure on their heads because they're channels and their guides are trying to channel through them. Um, it just depends on who you are as to how they're trying to get your attention. But they they will give you. I was rewatching. What's it called? The Good Place, and there's an episode where Michael's like, I sent you, I sent you. They were like, oh, we got your messages. And he's like, we got your message. And he's like, one? No, we got three. He said, I sent you 1,256, but okay. And that's kind of your guides, right? It's like, if you're not conscious, if you're all up in your head, your guides are just going to be like, they're sending you 50 different things, and you're like maybe lucky to get one because you're not being present, right? But it could be a billboard, it could be a thing somebody says as they pass by you on the street. I had an experience the other day of a waking dream, which in shamanic terms we talk about, which is, this is the waking dream and our dreams are the dreaming dream, and they're all the same, right? And so I was driving into town and everybody was cutting me off, and I have people tailgating me at the same time. So it's like, hurry up and slow down and hurry up and slow down. And I just reached out to a friend of mine. I'm like, okay, so I'm having an interesting waking dream right now. This is significant, right? And I was like, okay, something's going on here. And so it's been a very interesting process. And when you go through identity shift, it gets even more crazy, right? Because you're also changing your identity and who you are, and that can shift how things are talking to you and things like that. So yeah.
That's weird that you said that, because yesterday I was driving home from work, and I mean, I'm one of those people that's always like, I'm always like, what if, but out of nowhere, I'm driving on the highway and suddenly I thought, what if my whole life was a dream? I started to think about going back in time. And then I thought, what if my whole life was a dream? Like, what if I suddenly woke up right now and realized, holy fuck, like I'm 25 years old. None of the things that I believed I had ever done, I actually did. And everything was a premonition dream. And I got like in this weird loop in my head, and I'm like, how do I know I'm not dreaming now? Like, how do I know my life is real? And I think everyone has these once in a while, but I was so like weirdly locked into it that it freaked me out a little bit, because I'm like, what is the, like, how do I know this is real? And I wonder if this is kind of connected to that, all the stuff. And I want to actually go back to that, because you said something earlier that really I'm fascinated with, the timeline thing. When you were talking about the timelines splitting, like what does that mean? Where are we going?
Well, okay, so timelines have been converging and splitting a lot over the last decade or so. And this is why the Mandela effect exists, is because people from different timelines are coming together, and they have different memories. Like, I swear to you, when I was in high school, New Zealand was on top of Australia. And now it's in the southeast of Australia, between Australia and Antarctica. I swear to you, that's not where it was when I was in high school. Okay, I mean, like things like that, right? And so, it's because it was a different timeline where, these things were different, right? And so the thing that's happening right now, and if you go online and you follow anybody, and I don't do this, but people keep telling me about it. But they say that there's a ton of people out there who are talking about this flash that's supposed to come and change everything. And there's all these people doing doom and gloom stuff going, there's going to be an EMP pulse, an EMP is pulse, P is pulse, but an EMP from a gamma radiation or something from the sun that's going to knock out the power grid and send us into the dark ages, and there's going to be food shortages and all sorts of horrible things are going to happen, and better prep and everything. And I'm like, that is not what I get when I look, right? When I look, there is a period of intense chaos. And yes, I do see a flash from the sun, but it only knocks out the power for, a few days. And it's not a gamma radiation. It's a different type of energy than any recorded history has seen, or at least anything that we know about. And I feel like there was a group of, I don't know what, there was an Indian tribe Native American tribe that was that just disappeared, that they said ascended, right? And I can't remember the name of it right now. My brain's not working. But so I think that happened then, right? But the pulse is going to be this activation point that brings us up to another level of evolution, and it's going to be a split in the timeline, right? So there's going to be part of the people are going to be people who make the ascension, and part of the people are going to be the people who are left behind with all the stuff the other people are seeing, right? And so it's a timeline split, and it's like we're going to go over here and those people are going to go over there. And I don't know if it's I'm not clear if it's a dimensional shift too, but I mean, with all the downloads, I kind of think it might be a dimensional shift, right? Mm-hmm. And it is impactful enough that the elementals of this earth are like freaking out because they're not sure what's coming, but they can feel it. They feel it coming. And so there's some, it's soon, right? It's very soon. So
like soon over the next year, 5 years,
next year or two, somewhere around there. When I was looking, I was asking about the next year, and the chaos followed by 1,000 years of peace showed up in the answer to that. So I was asking for the next year starting in November. So, because that's when we did the thing. And I've actually recently connected with someone who is here to actually facilitate that transformation. And their energetics are different. I don't have permission to talk about it. So that's why I'm being a little cagey, because I don't like to talk about somebody's stuff without their permission. But, they're here for that. And there were 6 of them on the planet who were going to be doing that. And so it's very interesting to see how things are playing out. And so, there's all this stuff coming down. And so, but we were talking about how do you talk to your spirit guides, right?
I know. I just got sucked into the whole of this is so fascinating. But yes, like the signs that come through for for a lot of people, and a lot of because I see a lot of patients, right? I'm an acupuncturist, hypnotherapist. I mean, I feel like the most consistent signs that people feel are these physical manifestations in their bodies. The dream thing is huge. And what I really find interesting is how often people will lose someone, like they will pass away, and they will come to me. The person will, not the dead person, sometimes the living person will come to me and say, Marissa, I know this sounds crazy, but my mom died, and yesterday she came to me in a dream and she held my hand and she did this and that. But that means nothing, right? And I'm like, I mean, how many more that's the thing. It's like, I feel like there's a whole line of dead people just on the other side who are like, look at these dumbasses. Like, I've sent you 50 fucking messages, and everyone's like, oh, I wish mom was still with me. And I'm like, hello? I've sent, how many signs do I have to send you? I don't know why that people are so resistant.
I think those questions are more don't think I'm crazy questions.
Yes.
Because I talk about this stuff explicitly all the time, and people come to me and they don't say that to me in that way. They say, I think my mom is talking to me. And I'm like, yeah, she is. And because they know that they'll get a validating response from me. Whereas, when you're going to your acupuncturist, you don't know if they're going to believe in ghosts, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going to get but it doesn't mean anything thing. I don't think they actually think it doesn't mean anything. I think that they don't want to be called crazy. And so, because that's the thing. It's so funny. I was so terrified of coming out of the spiritual closet, 25 years ago. And I was a real estate agent at the time. And I was like, and I finally came out of the closet to a few of my clients at once, and they were all thrilled. They were like, oh my God, you believe this too? Great. Can you tell me about the energetics of the house? And did you know about Edgar Casey? And I was like, oh my God, why didn't I do this years ago? And this was in the 90s, right? And I talked about this on my podcast when I lived in Richmond. Everybody in Richmond had a ghost story. Everyone. I swear to you, there wasn't a single person I talked to who didn't have a ghost story. And none of them talk to each other. They all say, I've never told anyone outside of the family, but, right? And I'm like, you need to start telling people because everybody in this freaking town has a ghost story. I have never been to a more haunted place in my life, right? It was crazy. And so, I think a lot of it is people are afraid to talk about it, but it is a $13.6 billion industry, the spiritual industry. There's no way there aren't a freak ton of people who believe this stuff and aren't saying anything. Hello,
It has, I mean, I will say that like even over the last 10 years, it has changed so significantly.
Totally.
And I always think back to like 10, like it was maybe 10, 12 years ago. I was friendly with a psychic woman and she was like dating and she was on all these dating websites and she was constantly complaining that as soon as she went on a date with somebody and told them what she did, they were like, fucking, you're crazy, you're cuckoo, I want nothing to do with you. And she asked me one day, like, do you tell people, like, because you're single and you're out dating and all that, like, do you tell, when you're on a dating site, do you tell people like what you do? And I'm like, I don't put that, oh, I'm an intuitive on my dating profile. However, it's so interesting because years ago, I remember being so like the acupuncture part, I would meet guys and they would be like, oh, that sounds weird. Like not like I don't want to date you because of it, but it was just like, ooh, you're in a really weird profession, right? And now when I meet people and I tell them, well, yeah, I'm actually an intuitive too. Maybe it's because I have no shape, like I'm not like, oh, I'm embarrassed to tell you this, but it is so rare for me to stumble across someone who's not totally on board, who's like, oh, that's so cool. I used to have a ghost in my house when I was a kid, or like, I have a friend and I swear he can read people's minds. Like, we have shifted so far out of that immediate skepticism to openness, curiosity, and fascination. And
Yes.
I have seen it so dramatically over these last 10 years. It feels like a completely different world when it comes to this stuff. And like the signs too, like I remember I was dating somebody a few years ago and he was like not into this world at all. And then all of a sudden, every fucking day, he's sending me all his angel numbers and he's just like, 444. You just messaged me. And now I got a 444. What does that mean? I'm like, oh God, here we go. It's like we opened the door to
Yes. Yes. I will say that when I was dating, because I was single for, 16 years, I was not married for 16 years. I have had some relationships in there, but anyway, I would not put that I was an intuitive, even though I was fully out of the closet, because inevitably on the first date, they would say, well, read me. What do you get about me? And inevitably, it ended up putting us in a power dynamic imbalance because if I read them, I knew too much about them, and they were immediately uncomfortable, and because they were like, "Oh shit, oh, that, oh shit," right?
Mhm.
And I never had a second date from anybody that I did a reading for on the first date. So I stopped mentioning it until 3 or 4 dates in because otherwise it was problematic. But that was because of or I just refused to read them, and then they'd be upset. They were like, "Well, why not?" And I'm like, "Because it does a power and dynamic and imbalance, and just not good, right?" But
Yeah.
I mean, these things are all, part of this being in the spiritual path. But you're right. In the last 10 years, what I have seen is in 2016, the election results in 2016 shocked so many people that there was a mass turn towards spiritual growth,
Mhm.
and massive amounts of spiritual awakening started to happen at that point. And over the last decade, people are waking up faster and further along the path than they ever have in the past. So, like, usually people would wake up and be like, "Oh, well, I think that I have a ghost in my house," or I don't know if I'm like, I'm excited to think about it, but I don't really know much and I don't have any vocabulary and I don't have a lot of abilities yet, but I want to develop them, right?
Mhm.
Now people are like coming in going, I have prophetic dreams and I am, I'm my hands are turning on and like getting really hot and I don't know what it is. And I feel like, I lose control of my body and I'm saying stuff that I don't know why I'm saying it. All these things that are much further down the spiritual path,
Mhm.
and they don't have a vocabulary for it. They don't know what they're doing. They're just like, crap, what's going on? Yeah, there's the energetics are much bigger and people are coming in and they need to orient faster because they're just like, holy crap. And the worst part and best part is that the information is more available, but there's more misinformation too.
Mhm.
And so it's like, people are coming in going, oh, well, I did this spell and they're like calling in deities and entities and they have no protections on themselves or their house and they don't know. I'm just like, oh, please stop doing magic until you know how to manage your own energy and know how to protect yourself. Please
Oh,
stop.
yeah. Yeah.
Because the shit that goes sideways when you do that is not good, right? But they don't know. They have no idea.
No.
It's new. And so, this is one of the things. And so, let me I want to say I know we've talked a little longer than we had planned, but I do want to say something about interpreting messages because spirit does not speak in words usually. Spirit generally speaks in symbology.
Mhm.
And so symbology is an art to learn how to listen to it. Some of the best ways to learn about symbology is to just read a whole bunch of dream interpretation sites because that gives you a lot of the symbology. You can also take classes in children's literature because they will talk about the symbols of fairy tales and folk tales. You can take classes in film because they talk about the visual symbology that they use in film and media. But symbology, so I'll give you an example of symbology, right? Typically, a house in a dream or an intention is you. It is a representation of you. And the different floors are the different levels of your energetic field, right? And so, if you're in a house, in a meditation, or in a dream, you are in yourself. If the house is in disarray, you are in disarray. If the house is sparse and vacant and there's not a lot going on there, well then that's how you feel, right? It is a reflection of you. So it gives you an idea of that. Now your symbology will change depending upon your culture and depending upon your personal experiences. So what may be true for me may not be true for you. I have specific experiences that I've had in my life that bring up certain emotions. And what your guides will do is they will grab those experiences from your life that mean something to you, and they will give you that image or that impression, and that will speak to you. And the great thing about symbolic language is that it talks on multiple levels at the same time. So, it can mean X, Y, and Z all at once. And they be very clear, they almost always mean everything. Okay. It's
Mhm.
not a choose which one, it's a all of these, right? So, and you can layer the symbols, right? So you can juxtaposition them. And this is why learning how to read tarot cards is so useful, is because it's all in symbology, right? Tarot cards, not oracle cards. Oracle cards are not usually they don't usually talk about the representation of the symbols in oracle cards. But in tarot cards, there are very specific symbols that mean very specific things. And if you do more than the 3-line thing in the little book that you get with it, then you'll learn about those symbols and being able to understand them and see how they repeat across different cards and things like that, where you can go really deep into the understanding of what the cards mean, right?
Mhm.
But that's the language of spirit.
That is, I mean, I don't think anybody has ever said it that way. Like the symbolic thing. I mean, I feel like I mean, you're absolutely right, but I just have never heard anyone state it that way. And I like it because it's so literal. You know what I mean? I love like I'm the type of person who, even though I'm in this spiritual realm, I'm so structured and literal in the way that I think. And so this type of thing appeals to me because I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Like I can just go read this book and all of these things will come into play, and I can think about that's like, and I like the whole film thing too, because I never thought about it that way. And art, I would imagine archetypes as well, like learning
Yes.
about the archetypes would be big. I remember
Super
like,
useful.
do you remember years ago they had these books called Cocology? Have you ever heard of this?
No, what's that?
It's like they had all these like um they were like almost like mind games, right? Where, and you'll know once I describe it, like you're going through a forest and you see an animal. What animal are you seeing? And then it
Yeah.
leads you to a door. What color is the door? And then at the end of it, it's like, okay, this animal that popped into your subconscious represents whatever. This represents your present state, and the door represents the journey you're on. And I was so freaking fascinated with these books. I bought a ton of them. And I never knew at the time that probably the reason why was because because this was years and years ago. I probably had that. I probably knew like there's something in here.
Yeah.
And the dream interpretation stuff too. Like that was my thing for a while. I was always, but even now, like that piece, like sometimes I'll be like, oh, I'm seeing this. What does a rat symbolize? Like, and then it always seems to be completely in sync with, oh, look, that's the lesson I that's what I need
Well,
to do right now.
and this is the reason why on my Spirit Sherpa podcast we did a years of mythology uh, episodes, because mythology is another way to learn symbology, right?
Yeah.
So, if you know the story of Sisyphus pushing that boulder up the hill only to have it roll back down again, that's a metaphor that can be used in symbology, right?
Mhm.
And the more uh, fluent, that's the word, the more fluent you are in the language of metaphor and mythology, the more that your guides have a language to talk to you in, right?
Mhm.
So, and they can use things from public media like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, right? These are mass quantity stories, the Marvel comic stuff, right? These are mass quantity stories with symbolic references that they can leverage if that's something that speaks to you. But
Mhm.
if all you're watching is, slapstick comedy or, action movies or whatever, that don't have as much metaphor in them, then you don't have as big of a broad of a vocabulary for your guides to work with, right?
Mhm.
And so, it's like you are literally learning another language, and you have to learn the vocabulary of the language, which is why we did all of those. Oh my God, so many episodes on the mythology stuff in Spirit Guides. So, I mean, we reran that series for, I don't know, 6 years, and every 6 weeks we did an episode on it. So there's a lot. Um, and so, this is part of the job if you want to learn how to speak to your guides more, is you have to develop your vocabulary better.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I don't think, again, this is something that not a lot of, I don't think I've ever heard anybody bring it up. And it's such a valid point because, we are literally wandering around just saying like, we are speaking a completely different language, but we're expecting things to come through in our language in a way that is like going to make sense to us. But it's just like animals, right? If we're communicating with animals, we don't expect our dog to be like, "Hey, I'd like to take a shit now. How about you wake
Right.
up?" And you're like, "Okay, the dog's barking. I know what that means."
Right.
Message,
Yes.
message received. But yet, when it comes to the spiritual stuff, we really have this idea of like, you guys can come down to us. Like, you can make it as easy and understandable for me as possible. And if you don't, I'm just going to be like, all right, all these messages that are coming through, like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's,
Yeah.
it doesn't exist because I'm not on the same wavelength. I
Yeah.
love, I love the number thing too. I feel like that, and I feel like that is also a new thing. And I don't know if it's just because we're all coming into this new level of awareness or if it is something specific in the universe, but like that number piece, everybody now is like, oh, what does this number mean? Angel numbers, like,
Yeah. I did a whole episode on that. I don't, I've seen things online where they're like, oh, this number means this and this number means that. And I have not found that to be true for me.
Mhm.
What I have found is that the numbers are simply my guides saying, yeah, you're on the right track. And it doesn't matter what the number is. It's like, oh, it's 1111. Oh, it's 444. Oh, it's 555, whatever. But, for me, it's a, yep, keep going. It's a, we're just giving you a little ding, right?
Mhm.
Um, and, we often think that our guides are going to talk to us, and sometimes they do. And then we think, oh, I just thought that in my own head,
Yes.
right? It's like,
Mhm.
no, no, they said it to you, especially if it surprised you. If it's, you cannot surprise yourself, okay? If what was said to you was a surprise, it was not you.
That's good to know. Actually, I have one more question because
Yeah,
you had said earlier that the chills are always a yes.
yeah.
Always a yes. What's always a no? I mean, I don't know if you have that answer or not, but I'm just
So
curious.
a no is, again, it's a physical response, and we often discard our physical responses, discount them, right? We were like, yeah, it's just, But a no is usually a "Ugh" feeling in your body, or a
Okay.
there's a ick, there's an ick or an ugh. It's a down energy or an ick sensation or a fear sensation. If it's a danger, right? It'll be a danger or fear sensation. If it's a fear, excitement sensation, that's a yes,
Okay.
because fear and excitement are a quarter turn from one another.
Mhm.
So excitement's like, woo, something's coming, something's coming, oh, something's coming, something's coming, right? It's like, it's that, right?
Mhm.
So that the fear piece is a little more challenging, because you've got to determine whether it's a fear excitement or a fear. And oftentimes in spiritual work, the fear is not actually bad, because if you're going to go through an identity shift, and that's going to cause a shamanic death where you die to your old self and are reborn as your new self, that's actually a good thing. But it feels like you're going to die, right? It's you're
Yeah.
like, so I tell people, I'm like, if you think about signing up for a session with me and you're not in a state of then you're probably not ready, right? you know, if it should be because that's when your body already knows it's going to work. And
Mhm.
that's why it has that sort of wee hoo sort of response, right? And that's the thing, and that's true for anybody, right? If you're going to start working with somebody and you don't have sort of if you don't have any kind of response, if you're just meh, it's probably not going to work, right? So your
Yeah,
body
no, it's
already
an excellent
knows, we're
point.
living in the eternal moment of now, right? So it's already happened, and it's happening, and it's going to happen all at the same time, right? So your body already knows the answer to whether or not this is going to work. And if it's a then it's not going to work. Why bother, right? If you're not excited about it, you shouldn't do it. If you're not excited and a little scared, right? Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, even with the like the tingles, the chills, all that, I get that a lot, but I never thought of it as a yes thing. I always thought of it, I never realized what it was. I just thought it was like, oh, I'm getting something's happening, like I'm getting energy work, or I'm getting excited, and now I have these chills that are running through my whole body, and I never realized it was like, yep, that's where you're supposed to be. Yep,
Yeah.
that's what you're supposed to be doing. Um very that's like I just love this stuff. There's so
See?
much to talk about.
So much to talk about. Oh my God.
Mhm.
So yeah. I want to think if there's anything else I want to say about this. Is there anything else you want to talk about with the guides thing?
I don't think so. I mean, let me just take a quick peek and see if there's anything that I can't see
Oh
on
yeah. I
here that
didn't
you've
look to
shown
see.
up.
I said I would answer questions and I would look, and I didn't look. Suck. Okay.
It's just again, it's so different now with the way things are
Yeah.
set up with StreamYard. We'll probably see a bunch of questions pop up in an hour from now after we're
That's,
off.
that's the worst.
I don't
Let's see.
see anything on my end, but you have pages that you're streaming from.
I'm looking at my notifications and I'm not seeing anything new for people saying that they're doing it, so that they're talking. So
Okay.
um, the yeah, I've got a new friend request from somebody without a picture.
They're probably fake.
Probably, usually are. I always look before I say yes, but um, yeah, so I think we're good.
Okay.
Uh, let me just check in, see if there's anything else my guys want me to say. Um, yeah, they do. They're saying, don't make it so freaking hard. Okay. They're like, you get all up in your head and you're worried about doing it right, and then you make it more complicated than it has to be. And you know, we are sitting right here at your shoulder all the time, waiting to talk to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other piece is uh so other people talk about their spirit guides as like, you know, these are the higher beings guiding my journey, right? And to a certain extent, your guides are, they do see further than you see because they are not in physical form, so they can see in the timeline, they can look along there, but they're actually your support staff. They're not your higher ups, so it's not a hierarchical thing. It's their, you guys are jointly having this experience, and you're having it in physical reality and they're having it on the energetic plane, and they're serving as your you know, education slash communication director, and you know, making sure you're all good. And you know, there are so many guides that are working with you, and you can task them. You can, you know, I remember when I was trying to buy a house in Connecticut, I was an agent. I wasn't intending to buy a house, but it showed up in front of me, and I was like, oh, I have to have that house. And I sent my guardian angel to go protect the house so nobody else would buy it, because I had not applied for a mortgage. I hadn't done anything. I was not prepared, right?
Yeah.
And she did. She just hid it from everybody until I could get there. And so, you know, I got a good deal on it because it wasn't a multiple offer or anything. And even though it was a fixer upper, they should have been bought out from under me before I could get my ducks in a row. And you know, sometimes you can do that, right? And you know, you can send things out to go find you clients. You can send things out to you know, help you find your soulmate. You can, I mean, there's all sorts of things that you can do, but be careful what you ask for you will truly get it. Okay. And this is where the warning comes in. So I have a I had a friend, she's passed on now, but she okay, she's telling me I still have a friend. Thank you. Sorry. She's just like, what do you mean we're not friends anymore? I'm sorry. Okay. But she asked to learn about joy, and as she told the story, she lost her leg and it taught her about joy.
Oh,
Okay. And so she got what she asked for, but it was the only way that she was open to receive it, right? They won't take an extreme path away, but you don't know what's going to be extreme when you ask. So you better really be sure you want it, right?
okay. And be
And
very
so,
careful in your verbiage.
mm-hmm,
Okay. That's good to know.
yeah, like,
As all these people watching are like, bring me clients, guides, and they all end up with like Ted Bundy in their waiting rooms.
that's unlikely. But you might end up with a bunch of clients who will take advantage of you if you're having a hard time learning how to receive money and receive equal value for what you're providing and things like that. Because, you know, if you're trying to get clients and you're not getting them right now, there's a reason for that. There's a block,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if they send you clients, it's going to be clients who are going to teach you about the block, right? So that's the sort of thing, right? Yeah.
We don't want
It's
those.
Yeah, it's unlikely that I mean, there's no reason why they would send you a serial killer, right? I mean, I can't imagine a scenario in which a serial killer would solve your client issues. So, you know, that seems unlikely. They're always working for your best good, right? So it's the piece there is about, you know, how do you, you know, if you're addressing the I need more clients question, then they're going to give you clients that help you find the thing that's keeping you from having clients, right?
Okay.
Or experiences that will do that, right?
So I just wanted to mention somebody had a question here. Are
Yeah.
most of our guides our parallel selves?
No.
Okay. I don't
No.
even know what that means. So
Yeah, well, parallel selves from other dimensions is what I'm assuming that person means. So, your guides are part of your spirit family,
Mhm.
and your spirit family is, so think of physical reality as a virtual reality game, right?
Okay.
And you and your friends get together and you say, hey, we're going to play this game. It's like a role playing game, right? You say, I'm going to play this character, you play that character, blah blah blah. In fact, that's how I describe it to people, is like you're an actor, and your soul is the actor, and your physical self is the role that you're playing, and the role changes from lifetime to lifetime, but the troupe, the acting troupe, is often the same people, right? And
Mhm.
so, this lifetime you'll be my mom, I'll be the son, and this other person will be my sister, and in the next lifetime the other person is dad, and I'm mom, and this other person is the kid or the friend or the, whatever, right? We all play different roles, but we just rotate through and we agree on what we're going to do at certain choice points, in order to have the experience that we want to have in order to become the person we're going to become, right?
Mhm.
And so, that's your guides are the people who are in that troop who are not embodied on the planet.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And then there's also guardian angels, and there's some are guides who never incarnate. And so this is another thing that you have to sometimes negotiate, especially if you're channeling. When you're channeling, you have to negotiate. Okay, you can only do it for this long, and you do have to give me breaks so I can actually pee, because I know you don't recognize what that feels like, and you have to let me eat because I know you don't recognize what that feels like because you've never been embodied. But we need to have things that take care of my physical body, and we can't go for longer than this period, and whatever, right? Especially if you're an unconscious channel, because otherwise they have no idea. They just talk, and they'll talk you for 12, 15 hours, and then you fall over and you're like, what the hell happened? And it's like you let somebody who's never been embodied take over your body. That's what happened. They don't know what the signals mean. And so, that sort of thing. But the and that would be somebody like Abraham coming through and talking through Esther Hicks, right?
Mhm.
The the piece that you have to recognize is that some of these people have never been embodied, so you can talk to them until the cows come home about money and rent and all of this stuff, and they're just like, what? They don't understand because it doesn't exist for them, right? It's just not. It's like, and the idea of lack doesn't exist because it doesn't exist at that level, right? you know and self-worth issues, they don't get that either, because when you are the universe and the universe is you, worthiness makes zero sense, right? How can you be
Yeah.
worthy of something that's already you? How do you have to be worthy of that? So there are things that they just do not understand at a core level, and so you have to learn to understand what they understand so that you can ask in ways that they get, right? And so, it's more about leaning into the abundance and the trust that they're going to take care of you, and that you're going to have a fulfilling and yummy life that is doing all the cool things that you want to do, that they can grasp. But the I have a bank account with X amount of dollars in it, they're like, what?
Do you
They don't get.
teach this?
Oh yeah, this is part of the work that I do with my clients. Is we work with this either in the Woo Series coaching program, or at my retreats. I've got the Adventures in Energetics retreat coming up in April here in Panama, and yeah, I absolutely talk about all of this stuff. It's custom designed around the people who come, so whatever it is that they need to know is what we talk about. But yeah, I do a lot of this. Yeah.
Yeah, because this is like again, even this piece, like the how to have a conversation with certain guides slash entity, whatever you want to refer, because I never thought about that, but it's true. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't even know the difference between like, is this guide that I'm communicating with, have they been embodied? Can you ask them directly? Have you been
Yeah.
embodied? Oh, you
Yeah,
can.
you can. I mean, after a while, you get to the point where you can feel the energetics and you can know.
Hmm.
But there's also people that I've had clients who have come into my programs and they're like, "Oh, I've been working with this guide for a year or 2 years, and they're da 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 da," and then I teach them how to set up a protection, and nothing that is not there for their best and highest good is allowed through. And they're like, my guide is stuck on the outside and he can't get in and he's pissed off. And I'm like, that is not a guide.
What the
That
hell
is
is
not a
it?
guide. It was a demon.
Oh my God.
That is not a guide. If he was not there for your highest and best good, he would have been allowed in if he was, but
Yeah.
he's not allowed in. Therefore, he is not there for your highest and best good, right? There are all sorts of entities as we wake up. Think of it this way, okay? When we exist in the world but we're not awake, we on the astral we look like shadows, okay? But as we start to wake up, we brighten up and become real on the astral, right? So we become actual people on the astral. And just like in the physical world, on the astral, there are people who will help you and people who will hurt you and people who will be neutral to you, right? Same idea. But if you don't learn how to navigate it and you're suddenly awake, then things can come and feed on you. You can end up with entities that are chewing on you. You can end up with demons that are trying to pull you aside. And the more powerful you are, the more likely it is that you'll have things try to manipulate you, right? And so, this particular person was incredibly powerful. And, this thing had been messing with her for years. And I'm like, okay, we got to stop this. She also had something tattooed into her arm. So I was like, I saw that on our initial discovery call. I was like, can I pull that out for you, please? Because it is twicking me. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. So we pulled that out. But yeah, this is the thing, is that it's an entirely new world. It's a wholly different experience. And much like, I just moved to Boquete, Panama a few years ago. It's a completely different culture, right? You have to learn how to operate within that culture and learn what the rules are, learn what the parameters are, learn who the people are. And, it's like it was very interesting. Somebody had talked to the Rosicrucians and they had told them that their spirit guide could protect them from anything on the astral. And I'm like, no. Like, that is, if you walk in with one spirit guide into the equivalent of a biker bar on the astral, you're getting your asses kicked because you came unprepared. And your guide, unless your guide is, the Archangel Michael, right?
Yeah.
Unless your guide is Archangel Michael, you are getting your asses kicked. There are certain rules around how you operate on the energetic and how you protect yourself. And you have to have cleared your own beingness enough to be able to stand in your power enough to hold your own on the astral if you're going to walk into a biker bar, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I have no problems with my badassedness, right? But I don't walk into biker bars. Why? Because I don't want the fight. I don't want to be bothered, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why would I do that? It's a waste of time. It's not my people,
Yeah.
right? So, but it's not there are actual literal biker bars, but you get the idea, right? Um, so all of this, if you're stepping into this work, is you need to orient yourself, and that's the nature of the beast. So yeah.
So this is so good. So
Yeah,
there's so much to say. We went a little longer than we planned to, but
that's right.
that's okay. Hopefully it's
It's a
okay
good
with you.
conversation.
It was a really good conversation. So for anybody who's out there who's watching, thank you for joining us. Kelly Sparta, her podcast is Spirit Sherpa. And if you want to give them a little bit more information on how to reach you, contact you if they want to work with you.
Yeah, so on the screen it says kellysparta.com, so you can see that if you're watching the screen. And that's my website. You can reach out for a discovery call. There's a button on every single page. You can't miss it. And just sign up for a discovery call, and I'm happy to talk to you about where you are in your process and what should be next and so on and so forth, so that you can identify what the right path is for you. And while we're at it, Marissa is running her holistic entrepreneurs group, which is Amazeball. So if you're actually an entrepreneur in the holistic field, or if you're interested in working with really good entrepreneurs, then you should join that group. And also your findyourhealers.com website,
Yes.
which is, she's actually hand vetting, like individually vetting each and every person who's listed on that site. So they're not just randos, right? They're people who actually know what they're doing and provide good good services. And I love that because it's so hard to know that when you start working with somebody new. And
Yes.
so, I'll be listed there eventually. We keep talking about it.
I know we just have to, we have to get that little chunk of
Yeah,
time where we can
yeah,
just get
yeah.
you in here.
But but
Yeah.
I'll be there soon. Yeah. And yeah, so guys, if you're not following Marissa, you absolutely should be following Marissa. She is amazeballs, and I love her, and you guys can tell we vibe, right?
You vibe.
So
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah. No, I mean, I love it. And this is why I love working with really high level healers, that are making a difference. And that was why the Find Your Healer site was created, because there are no standards. People are just like, I have no idea how to find anybody. Like, if I'm not in this world, I'm on the outside, and I'm just like, okay, I'm in need of something, and I have no idea how to find it. And so that was where we created this to really have just like anything else, right? If you are a doctor, you've gone through medical school, you have these accreditations, people know you're legit. And this is the
right.
same thing for the metaphysical field. So
Yeah.
if any of you out there are interested in joining and going through the process of applying, you can just go to findyourhealers.com. There's a button you can click that, it will ask you, are you interested in becoming a practitioner? Take the quiz, and that will be the first step to getting on the site. So yeah. So again, thank you, Kelly. This was awesome. This was a great conversation. I love
Thanks for
having
the
these
idea.
conversations with you. And if anyone has questions, feel free to reach out to either myself or to Kelly Sparta, kellysparta.com. And I'm sure we will see you on here soon with another live to cover some more conversational fodder, because there's
Yes,
a lot of it.
I'm just checking my phone for the last second to see if there are any questions.
I'll look
It's
too.
refreshing. Wow, that's taking forever. Why is that taking forever? Let's turn off the Wi-Fi. Maybe it'll clear up. Or not.
I don't see anything.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm going to look over here on my Facebook and see if I can get it to give me my notifications here. So.
God, I miss the old StreamYard so much. That was
Yeah.
just so much easier, and so much. It was so compact. Everything was right here.
Okay. So I did have a question here. Can guides be in body at the same time they are transmitting? Okay, so so Gina asked this question, and it's an interesting question with a weird answer. So I'm going to apologize now. The short answer is yes, and so remember that we're living in the eternal moment of now, and so therefore, because we're in the eternal moment of now, we are having all of our lifetimes at the same time. And so your guides who are quote unquote not embodied this life are also embodied in all of the other lifetimes that you guys were together, right? So, they're embodied and they're disembodied at the same time because we're in the eternal moment of now. And so, yes. And it makes it too complicated to think about, right? So, it's your brain starts to go, right? So yes, the answer is yes. And it's kind of complicated to think about, so don't worry about it too much.
Is this like one of those questions that's like the parallel thoughts, like if I went back in time and killed myself as a baby, would I still exist here? That type of like, I can't wrap my brain around it.
Kind of. I mean, yes and no, because there are multiple timelines, and then there's a timeline in which you killed yourself and you ceased to exist, and then there was a timeline in which you didn't, and so you still exist in that timeline, and so do you stop existing or not? Is the right? So this is the thing. Right? We get into dimensional stuff, and then don't even talk quantum entanglement. That gets ugly. But what's fun is that science is actually catching up to what the metaphysical world has known for a long time, which is, they're seeing that there's quantum entanglement, which is like things, spooky actions at a distance, right? It's what they literally they call it that, right? Spooky action at a distance. And it's you can change the path of the electron on one side of the country, and the path of the electron on the other side of the country will change as well, sort of thing, because they are connected, right? Yeah, it's very interesting in the quantum physics world right now.
Oh, I'm
So
sure. I'm
yeah, I have
even
an
thinking
engineer
to
brain
myself,
somewhere.
I'm glad that we're limited because I feel like there's so many things that are stretching my brain right now. I almost am glad I'm not that smart.
I have an engineer brain and a highly intuitive nature, and you put the two together, and I'm like, I structure the crap out of spirituality. I'm like, okay, this is how this works. This is how that works. I break it into smaller parts, and I organize it and whatever. It was so funny when I started Spirit Sherpa. I had all of my friends about 2-3 months into the podcast airing. They all came up to me and, oh my God, I love your podcast. And I'm like, it is a beginner's podcast. Why are you even listening to it? Like, but they're like, no, you're taking every 2-hour class I've ever taken in my life and stitching it together into a big world picture. And I'm like, yeah, that's how my brain works. But I didn't know I was doing it. Right.
But that's what we need because so much of it is so nebulous and like we can't wrap our heads around it. But that's the way people come across in business too, right? It's like, what do you do? I can't explain it. I just connect. I'm like, well, you need to explain it better than that.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's also a problem because, there are so many different silos in this work. Like, wellness and yoga and tantra and Reiki and, there's so many different things, and they all have their own language, and then you've got the religions of Wicca and, Native American shamanism and different, and I don't want to say that it's one because it isn't. It's all the different tribes have different things, right? And all the different ways of looking at things, and there's like a million different pathways to get there, and they're all teaching the same concepts, but they use different words. And so that's the benefit of being a consumer of information for 50 years is that I that's one of the things that I do is cross pollinate. Right. And I'm like, okay, this thing over here means that over here. And this is how you integrate the two pieces together. And this is why they are the way they are. And this is how the cultural influence impacts it. And all, it's just, yeah. So, and, how do you do magic? And how do you ideate magic? Because that's its own thing. Right. We talked about, be careful what you ask for.
Yes.
And, ideating how you create an energetic is very important. How do you think about it in a way that is going to give you the safest path, right? Not that there is safety in magic. There is never safety in magic. I want to be very clear. There's never safety in magic because you are dealing with the energetics of the universe and you are an incredibly powerful person. And the more unconscious bullshit you have still in your system, the more likely it is that you're going to create something you did not intend, right? However, there are ways to limit the possibility of things going sideways. And that's the important part about learning how to do it. But, there's not safety in driving a car, and we all do that, right?
Yeah.
Because the benefits of driving the car outweigh the safety concerns. Now, we will put a seatbelt on. We will use a car with airbags, right? We will stop at the stoplight and go when it goes green and look both ways before we move because we are being defensive drivers because that is the smart thing to do. But we all drive, and it's an incredibly dangerous thing to do statistically, right? But, magic is sort of the same way. So, we just think of it differently. And so, don't get freaked out is what I'm saying. Be your powerful self.
Carefully.
Learn how to do it well. Yes.
Don't invite anything in that you do not understand.
Do not summon anything bigger than your head.
Yes. That was a wise words of wisdom right there.
We had house rules. I had lived in a magical house for a long time, and we had house rules that all came out of something stupid happening. And so the first one was no mucking about with time and space within the confines of the property. No summoning anything bigger than your head. If you summon it, it's your responsibility to get rid of it. If uh, all guests, corporeal and non-corporeal, can stay for a maximum of 3 days, and they must stay in your own room. Uh, don't open doors and windows that you don't know where they go. If a door or window opens of its own accord, do not wait to see what happens. Inform the house warden immediately. And always, always, always take out the trash.
Really rules to live by for every
Really
household.
rules to live by for
Yeah.
every menstrual house, yes. If the ward falls down, it's broken, fix it. Yeah.
You probably have wards everywhere.
I have a ward in I actually don't physically represent the wards in my house anymore because I don't need to. I'm connected to it, so I know when it's a problem.
Mhm.
But I have a ward on my property. We can get into all the fun stuff that you can do with wards, like keeping hurricanes from doing damage to your property. We did that with a hurricane that passed within 20 miles of one of my students' houses. Everyone around was completely destroyed. Things, roofs were off, trees were down, things were turned over, whatever. She had a one tree at the very edge of her property where we had set the wards to wobble so that they would slow the winds down. She had one tree right at the wobble range that fell over, and everything else, she was like, we had some small branches that came down, but nothing major, no roof problems. In fact, there was a pool in a trailer that was an open slat trailer. There was a kiddie pool, plastic kiddie pool with nothing in it that did not move.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Everybody
So
needs to be doing magic.
I'm telling you.
Wow. Especially now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of shit going on with the
Yeah.
environment right now.
Yeah. I had another client who had 2 trees, big, tall, like 60-foot pine trees, land on her house. She lost 2 shingles.
Holy shit. I mean, I'm glad I'm in the Northeast, but like we had an earthquake the other day. So
Oh,
who
yes.
knows?
I heard about that. Amazing. Yeah.
Holy shit.
So,
I
yeah.
mean, I love this stuff. Like legit, like I could literally sit here for hours and just go on, but probably I know we were going to keep this short, so
Yeah.
I'm sure you probably have to go. But I will again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you
So much
all
fun.
for joining us. Go visit Kelly's website, learn about magic, check out her podcast, Spirit Sherpa, check out Find Your Healers. And if you have questions, you guys know where to find us. Thank you guys.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.